think we have time left for one more item. Let's go to 4.1, our update on our Foundation for California Community Colleges. Keitha Mills, Jan Dehesh, and Carrie, thank you all for being here.
Good morning again. Just a quick update from me, and then I'll hand it off to Keitha and Carrie. I wanted to let you know that from our last board meeting on June 5th that we held here in Sacramento, the appointment of Alice Perez now rounds out our 9-member board. So our full board is sitting. Thank you. We also, at our board meeting, our main topic was a discussion of our strategic outlook for the coming year and the approval of the fiscal 2013 annual plan and budget. Keitha will give you more of those details in her meeting, in her report. Our next board meeting is scheduled for September 11th in San Diego and will coincide with your Board of Governors meeting. So we have staff working to try and put together a joint event, a joint dinner, which right now I think our full board will be in attendance, so everyone will have the opportunity to meet the full board and hopefully continue to grow our collaboration between the boards.
Jan, I think you and I should be the principal consultants on where that dinner
where to go.
is located.
Perfect, perfect. I will give you a call, we can have coffee,
right.
Come up with that. All right, thank you. And Keitha will now give her report.
Thanks, Jan. Hi, good morning. So in the interest of time, I know we're standing before lunch, and that's never a good place to be. I'll try to be really brief. Also, I guess in the spirit of full disclosure and openness and transparency, we've included a lot of detailed information in your packets. And so I just want to hit kind of a few highlights on our annual plan and budget. And to do that, I'm actually going to flip back a couple of pages to the colored pie charts, which represent our fiscal year 2013 annual budget. So for fiscal year 2012, we're forecasting to bring in about $41.5 million. And so for the following year, we're projecting about 7% growth at just under $45 million in total revenue. And so that revenue comes into the foundation at the statewide level, and the vast majority of that revenue is then distributed back out to the colleges through a variety of programs and services and areas of support. On the top pie charts, in the middle pie chart, that illustrates our expense distribution. And the one thing I would point out from this pie chart is that our administrative and advancement expenses, which are basically our two non-programmatic expense categories, total 6% and 2% respectively, so for a total of 8%, which means that 92% of that every dollar that comes into our foundation, so 92% of that just under $45 million that comes into the foundation goes back out into the system to support all 112 colleges and 72 districts. So we're very proud of that statistic. That means we operate very lean, but that we provide a great deal of support to the system. We are projecting about $500,000 worth of reserve build in this fiscal year, and another about $500,000 in fiscal year 2013. That will bring our net reserves to about $1 million at the end of this fiscal year, and then $1.5 million at the end of next fiscal year. And that's been a big part of our strategic planning as we're looking forward, maintaining and sustaining our current programs and services, growing and offering more and more services to the colleges, but also ensuring our long-term viability through growing our modest reserves. So our goal over the next 3 to 5 years is to grow our reserve base to about $3.5 to $4 million, which is still a pretty lean margin on if you look at the $40 million that we're bringing in every year. So I think those were the highlights of the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has questions about our annual plan or budget.
Member Baum.
I had a couple of questions. One is on the College Buys program, you're projecting a decrease in revenue because Microsoft stopped the student program? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've operated for a number of years a Microsoft Student Select program where we had the ability to offer students significant discounts on Microsoft Office products. Microsoft has discontinued that particular program, and we are in the process of renegotiating another type of student offering for our California community colleges and their students. We've actually made some pretty good progress in trying to negotiate something. There's nothing, so as of June 30th, the program that was in place is no longer in place. We believe over the next 30 to 90 days, we'll have a new program in place that will work to replace that. At the time that we put together this budget, we were unsure about what might be possible with Microsoft. So there's nothing in this budget related to a student offering, but I think today we're much more optimistic that we'll have a new student offering in the future.
There's very steep discounts on Microsoft Office products. Was that just for students, or the faculty and staff could also do that? Did that go away as well?
So just the student offering was impacted. So the faculty offering still exists. And what we're negotiating now with Microsoft, we believe could potentially result in even steeper discounts for our students. So what we thought was going to be not a good thing for our students might end up turning out to be even a better discount for our students.
Okay. And then my last question is, where on the budget is going out and raising money? Because a lot of this kind of comes under programmatic activities.
Yeah.
And so those definitely need to generate a positive revenue versus expense. But where's going out and getting grants and securing individual annual funding support and unrestricted support?
That's a great question. So historically, all of our fundraising has been in the form of programs, grants, foundation type fundraising. We have not traditionally just raised money from the general public. We're much more successful when we can develop programs and pitch those programs to funders and then distribute that money back out. We are in the process of working on what we call a general case for support that would target more either individualized fundraising or more general operating support. So that is something that's very new to us and not something that we've historically done, but that is something that is part of our strategic outlook that we feel that is will help us build our reserves as well and ensure our long-term growth. In the key assumptions on the introductory paragraphs of the report, there are several new business assumptions, and within that there are a number of fundraising activities that fall in the programmatic areas. So our key fundraising priority for this next fiscal year is student success. And we have built in additional revenue growth related to student success fundraising efforts that we've been working in close collaboration with the Chancellor's Office, trying to find those areas in the student success initiatives where there may not be funding available from a state perspective, but that there might be private funders that are interested in infusing money into the system to help promote those initiatives. So that's one example of fundraising that's built into the programmatic areas.
Because that's what I'm hoping. We're going to be having a new chancellor soon too, and would it make sense to have some fundraising support available so that the chancellor might be able to tap some additional private resources in addition to public resources for an initiative or a project or something like that?
Absolutely, and that's what Carrie and her team are here to do, is to help kind of marry the key initiatives that come out of either the Board of Governors or the Chancellor's Office or from campuses, try to marry those key initiatives to private or public funders who are interested in infusing money into our system. And so that's where Carrie and her team come in to help kind of bridge that.
Thank you. The last thing I'll add, I was going to do it under board member reports, but where I work at USC, the Governor Schwarzenegger came to commencement because his daughter was graduating from our school, and engaged him in conversation, and he did say, he reasserted his passion for community colleges and said whatever he can do. And I don't know that it would, he has great political capital, but at the same time, he might, if he could do something like an event, a fundraising event or activity or initiative, I think that the foundation should tap him for whatever take him up on his offer to meet with some high-level donors or something like that in support of the system.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And we hope that you'll help us make that connection.
Absolutely, happy to do that.
Member McDougal.
Yes, couple of things. Number one, I want to thank you both as the leaders of the organization. I think the impact that you're making on behalf of the colleges is substantial. $41.5 and $44.5 million is significant. And thank you for your efforts that have resulted in that. And for the board as well, of course, very impressive. I know you may be speaking to this issue later, but the survey, it would be very helpful to have the number of foundations. Everything is listed in percentages, but it's impossible to know what it is a percentage of without the N listing the foundations, and I at least was unable to find that in the report. So it gives us some sense of scope. And the last comment, I think your goal of getting the 3.5 and 4.0 million for your net asset reserves is a very important goal, and from my perspective, I would certainly reinforce it as a laudable objective.
Thank you.
Any other board member questions and comments? No? Okay.
Do we want to spend if we may, a couple of minutes
Sure.
on that survey? Because I do want to address
Yeah.
that if the board allows. I know we're right
Okay.
before lunch, but if we can, we'll quickly go through the survey.
Couple minutes.
Okay. As was requested of us back in March at the Board of Governors meeting, we launched a survey of all of the foundations within the community college system. There are slides in your packet. I'm just going to go through some of the highlights. That's why we're not seeing specific numbers, but there's all kinds of detail that we'll be happy to share as needed. There were 92 foundations
92.
that are within our system. Some are district foundations, some are college, some are both. We are very excited to announce that 95% of our colleges responded, which were, again, that's unheard of, I think, in the world of surveys. So of the 5% that did not respond, 3 of the colleges simply don't have a designated contact, and 1 college foundation dissolved in June of this past year. So I'm going to, if I may, go through a couple of the highlights of the slides. Won't go through every one of them, but I do want to take some time at the end to address some specific questions that your board posed to us in terms of recommendations. But to start off, we asked questions such as, how are the foundations formed? Are they auxiliary? Are they independent? In this slide you see there, the very first slide that talks about organizational classification is listed there, really pretty much broken into thirds. Some directly are affiliated with a district, some are directly affiliated with a college, and some are basically independent, and they don't align themselves at all with either one. We asked about foundation leadership reporting, which is on the next slide. Again, I'm going to move very quickly through this. I'd like to point out one in particular slide that is the 4th slide in, and it is titled Organization Background Information about the average median income of counties served. You'll see here that a majority of our colleges serve counties that have a median income of less than $30,000 per year. So as I move to the next slide, we want to keep in mind that the success of some of our colleges in the fundraising arena has a lot to do with the counties and the communities that they serve and their capacity for philanthropic giving. I want to skip ahead to the the types of self-supporting revenues that the colleges bring in, and that is titled Financial Summary. Again, we're skipping ahead just simply because of time here, but the types of self-supporting revenues we thought you would find interesting. Many of the colleges raise funds for their, through their endowments, but they also generate revenue through those endowments to support their operations. We have direct donations that support operations, administrative fees that they take from each donation that will go toward operations, and there are certain enterprise activities, swap meets, vendor relationships, vendor contracts, I should say, event sponsorships, things like that that support general operating as well. I'm going to, again, you can read so much of this, but I'm going to skip ahead to the slide that's entitled Fundraising Efforts and Priorities, Fundraising Plan Alignment. We felt this was a very important piece of information to demonstrate that 60% of the colleges reported that they do actually have a fundraising plan, but 40% do not have a fundraising plan. Of the 60 that do have a fundraising plan, about half of them have reported that they actually align their fundraising plan with the college's fundraising plan. The rest are still working on it, or that is just not simply part of the, their planning. I want to skip ahead again to the slide after, 2 slides ahead that's titled Fundraising Efforts and Priority. 5-year fundraising history we thought you would find interesting. Quite a bell curve here. It shows that really 25% of our colleges have raised $5 million or more over a total of 5 years. 30% have raised less than $500,000 over those same 5 years. And then the next slide I want to jump ahead to is the one that's titled Fundraising Efforts and Priorities, Comparison of the Number of Staff and the Fundraising History. As you can see, there is a direct correlation between the number of staff that a foundation has and the dollars raised. So we wanted to make sure that we pointed that out to you as well. The key takeaway messages from this is that 40% of our colleges operate with less than 1 full-time staff person. Some of them only have 10 or 25% of their time spent on fundraising. The majority of colleges, as I mentioned, serve counties with an average median income of less than $35,000, and over 50% of our colleges align their fundraising plan with the colleges, and the other half do not. What was asked of us at the last Board of Governors meeting was what can be done by the system to encourage and support the development of advancement activities, and how can the Board of Governors use this data to support the development of advancement activities where there are none taking place and enhance where they are taking place. So we've made some recommendations, and I will stop here because you can read those recommendations unless you'd like me to go through them, and open it up to any questions or any thoughts. As we enter this, obviously, period where generating fundraising and philanthropic dollars could be very critical to the budget successes of the colleges.
Vice President Baca.
Have you already shared, or are you planning to share this with the field?
We are planning to share this with the field after today. We wanted
Okay.
to share it with you first.
Member McDougall.
First, I'd like to thank you very much for the survey. I think it's tremendously revealing. My personal point of view is it's extremely disappointing to see at this stage of the game where we stand as a system of 112 colleges and the relative development of a fundraising activity. It's hard to understand, given our local nature and our deep involvement in every community, why there isn't a flourishing foundation in every one of those institutions. And to have only 92 as the end, that is a district and college figure, it's surprising but disappointing as well. I think your recommendations are sound. I would just urge that within the work plan that you have, that whatever time can be allocated to develop further the capacity of our system overall, that some of those efforts be undertaken. I would hope that a foundation, for example, an external foundation, might provide a major grant that would enable our foundation, your foundation, to present leadership for how resource development can be increased within the system. What we have is not satisfactory.
That's right. And I think what the Board of Governors can do, obviously out in your travels, be talking with presidents, talking with the chancellors, encouraging them to become educated themselves about fundraising, to align themselves very closely with their foundations. We are working very closely with some of the existing conferences that go on that gather our college leaders to make sure that there is a track involved in fundraising and to help educate and bring that to light and more to the focus.
Member Baum?
There seems to be some disconnect, at least, which is completely understandable, that most fundraising efforts, according to this, are for scholarship assistance. But then at least more than half of the students in the state get fee waivers, correct? And so the real need is to raise money to increase access. And so one thing we looked at our district is there a way to fund more sections as opposed to funding more scholarships? Because first off, our fees are fairly low, and those students who demonstrate financial need are eligible for a fee waiver. Yet more of our fundraising efforts are going into getting scholarship assistance than anything else. And so has that conversation happened where what are the other fundraising priorities that can be taken to the prospective donor base?
And there are a number of those. There are many of the colleges that have current campaigns going on to support capital campaigns, to build their endowments so that they can take those unrestricted, hopefully unrestricted dollars and put those to use as the college sees fit. So there are pockets of success out there that we've seen really growing, but a number of the colleges historically have fundraised for scholarships and for capital campaigns, but we do see that trend changing as the need for other dollars has come to light. But again, it's a slow-moving process, and without the alignment of the college and the foundation, it makes it more challenging for the foundations.
Chancellor Scott?
Well, this is a very informative survey, and I want to compliment you for it. It's a tremendously untapped field out there, and community colleges have traditionally not done a lot in the area of foundations, and yet I think there's tremendous opportunity. I'm reminded of kind of an old hackneyed story of two shoe salesmen that were sent out long ago to very undeveloped country, and one wrote back and said, this is a terrible territory, nobody here wears shoes. And the second one wrote back and said, this is a wonderful territory, nobody here wears shoes. So let's look at it the second way and say, this is an untapped area, and as we look at the success of some foundations of colleges, in some cases it may have been there in a little richer area or something, but in some cases they just seized the opportunity, and in other cases they haven't. So it's just it's a great opportunity that we have here, and maybe we could look at some of the ones that have, those 5% that have raised $20 million or more, and say, what is it they did that succeeded in that? I just visited, for instance, we were at the Chancellor's Circle at the College of the Canyons, and they have a very robust foundation. They have a brand new building in which they pointed out quite a bit of it had been donated as a result of businesses and private donors. So there's a lot of good examples out there, and there's just a lot of untapped resources on the part of a lot of our colleges. But this survey really lays the groundwork to see where we are, maybe where some of our strengths are, and yet some of our weaknesses.
Absolutely. And we will be, again, sharing this with the field. They are very much looking forward to receiving this information. Many of them plan to share this with their college leadership to hopefully make a point to show more resources potentially equals more revenue.
Other questions or comments from members? With that, thank you all very much. Good work. Appreciate it. With that, we're going to break for lunch. Unfortunately, we're going to cut our lunch a little bit short today because we got a lot, but let's try to be back here around 1 o'clock or so, or 1:05.